We got a lot to discuss today. We have a great Tigers victory over the Oakland Athletics. We have a dominant Tarik Skubal performance. We have a Major League debut in Brennan Hanafy. We have the Eries Seawolves and their playoff success. And obviously, we have the Detroit Tigers finally hiring a general manager. Jam-packed show. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, September 22nd, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB right now or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle with any order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. All righty. Wow. We have a jam-packed show today. We're going to start with the ball game, but we'll get into everything I said at the beginning of the show there. Impressive win. 7-3. You took care of business. And I'm not going to throw a parade for beating the 2023 Oakland Athletics. They're dreadful. That is a really bad major league product. And I don't say that from like an ivory tower of like, oh, look, my team's so great. We haven't gone 500 in 7 years. And in my lifetime, I'm not that old. I'm in my mid-20s. And I have seen with my own eyes my baseball team lose 114 or more baseball games twice, two separate occasions in my life. So I certainly don't say this from like an ivory tower, I'm better than you, we're better than you standpoint, okay? But objectively, the Tigers are in a position where they're going to finish around 10 games under 500, and they might have 30 more wins than the Oakland Athletics in 2023. That's abysmal. Absolutely abysmal product that they are putting out on the field, and it showed in this ballgame. And it makes you frustrated that we dropped 2 of 3. Not only did we drop a series to them it was July. I went to the game in which it was 0-0 going into like extra innings. Took my friend and his family to that game. Great, just all around fantastic game to pick there. But we got blown out in one of those games. And I remember coming on the show, the episode after, we didn't even talk about the game. We just questioned everything. We came on here, we're just like, oh, what are we doing? What is Scott Harris doing? This is awful, right? And this game reminds you why we were so frustrated in July when we did get blown out and dropped the series to them. Because this major league product is brutal. They had 3 errors in this game that only 5 of the 7 runs the Tigers ended up scoring were earned. They couldn't field a ground ball, dog. They could not field a ground ball. Like relatively routine grounders just booted all over the infield in this baseball game. So I genuinely do feel really bad for Oakland A's fans. That's a whole different conversation. I wish them nothing but the best in their endeavor and their fighting the good fight there against Oakland A's ownership. But it is remarkable how bad that team is at the major league level right now. And like when you look at when you go into this series, right? And we talked about like, oh, anything worse than at least splitting is like unacceptable. I mean, you watch the first game and you pretty much just turned to, if we're not taking 3 of 4, that this is probably a disappointment. Like, even though it's the last leg of a West Coast road trip, and it is in Oakland, like they don't really have much home field advantage these days, but like you go down the list, this team's better on the road anyway. The Tigers are like, it's just you very quickly you watch this game, not even the whole game. You watch like the first inning, and you're like, okay, well maybe we should be taking 3 of 4 at least. I don't really expect the Tigers to sweep anybody. I don't care how good the Tigers are. Well, if they're obviously a playoff team, maybe I do, but I don't care how bad the opponent is. I guess I'll put it that way. I don't care how much better the Tigers are than their opponent. This iteration of the Tigers, I don't expect them to sweep anyone they play. I'll gladly just take series victories. So I'm not going to come on here and say they better win 4 of 4. It's a failure. But I don't know, maybe 3. It's tough for me to really justify a series split here. That was awful baseball. And they took advantage, right? So they did their job. They showed up. They did what they were supposed to do. They did not let this become a get right game for the A's. Like they didn't mess around. They didn't play with their food. They went out and attacked from the first inning on. They were the better team. So good for them. Good for the Tigers for taking care of business and doing what they are supposed to do. It's an overlooked thing, right? You can very easily just point and be like, oh, they only beat bad teams, whatever. And that's true more times than not. But like there was a time when we were the bad teams, and there was a time when we never won the games we were supposed to win. And then there was the bottom of the barrel in 2019 when there was just no games we were supposed to win. So I'm just going to take it and count it as a win. Obviously, the lead here is Tarik Skubal is unbelievable. And we're not going to bury it. We're not going to save it for later in the show. We got plenty of other stuff to talk about. Tarik Skubal was phenomenal, and people are already throwing around like the ace title. I've said this before. I don't really hold as much weight as a lot of people do with like the title of ace. Like I feel like, growing up, like you do obviously. And I grew up in my childhood was Justin Verlander. Right. So like I grew up with, like who's the ace of the Tigers, like who's the ace. And I got a pretty good look at it, at a darn good one for most of my childhood. And, but like these days, I don't know if it's just that like we haven't had a pure one since like JV left. Maybe that's just it. But I don't hold that much weight in like the title of like this is, like game one and opening day and all that. Like this is your ace. Like you're gonna have a best pitcher. And Tarik Skubal looks like he's gonna be this team's best pitcher. And if you do hold a lot of weight in the term ace, Tarik Skubal looks like the ace of this staff. I'm not going to stand in the way of that take whatsoever. He has been absolutely lights out. And as far as pure stuff goes, he's probably the closest, not even probably, he's objectively the closest thing we have had since that incredible rotation, Scherzer, Verlander, etc. Right? Like he's the closest thing stuff-wise we've had to anybody in that rotation. He might be on the same level. And like, I don't think that's like a super hot takey thing to say. He's unreal. And as we'll talk about it after the break, but like he's reached a certain point that I think should be terrifying for opponents. And we'll get into that right after I tell y'all about our friends over at Bird Dogs. Talked about at the beginning of the show, Bird Dogs are the best. They make you look good. They are stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They do exactly the same as Lululemons, but they fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts as well that are made of like that stiff, restricting cotton. These are stretchy, and they're cloud knit fabric is what the insides are made out of. It's phenomenal. They're my favorite shorts. I wear them golfing. I wear them swimming. I've worn them to the lake. I've worn them to grad parties. I've worn them like out. I've worn them just chilling at home. Like they are the most versatile shorts that I own. They are the most comfortable shorts that I own. I cannot say enough good things about this product. I have 3 pairs of shorts and 1 pair of pants from Bird Dogs now. Started off as 1 pair of shorts right at the beginning of their partnership with Locked On, just so I could talk about it. I now own 4 different pairs of their clothing. They are the best. I am absolutely obsessed with them. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order as well. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back on Monday recapping this series against the Oakland A's. So he's reached a point that, like, we can talk about the stuff, and like, he's got 98 that he can paint. He's got a plus changeup. He has a plus slider. He's got a good sinker. Like, he is nasty, but he's reached a point where the pitches are all consistently plus pitches. And like, that's a scary point for opponents to reach, because then you don't have to, it's harder to game plan against as an opponent, right? Like, you don't get to look at them and go, okay, like for a couple of pitchers on this staff, you can look at it and go, okay, this dude has a plus slider and he doesn't have a plus fastball. So we're going to sit slider and hope that good things happen. And, you know, like, there's sequencing that he commonly does, because this is the way that he can get people at the major league level. So we're going to try to game plan against that. It's going to work sometimes, but it's not going to work sometimes. Tarik Skubal has reached a point this season where he truly now can do that to his opponents. He can look and go, well, I have a plus changeup, a plus slider, a plus fastball, and a really good sinker. You know what? The Oakland A's don't really hit changeups very well. So I'm just going to throw a billion changeups. And then his next opponent, they don't hit sliders very well. So the slider is going to be the pitch that I throw more than any other pitch. You get what I'm saying? The way that now he is not, when he's on the mound, he is not game planning around himself and his abilities. He's game planning specifically around what his opponent can't do. And he has enough plus pitches to where he can accommodate any lineup and navigate his way through it. And that's unbelievable that he's reached that point. I can't say enough good things about where Tarik Skubal is at in his career. And, like, if you would have told me, like, this is all we were asking for out of him this year, right? Like, he missed the first half of the season with an injury. All we were hoping for was that he was going to come back, remind us how good he was, show that the stuff didn't go away during the injury, right, of not pitching for a year, a calendar year, and give us some optimism going into 2024. I think he's blown past that. I think, and this is, I said this like his first or second start back, I think his stuff now is better than it's ever been. I think it's better than it was pre-injury. I think his command is better than it was pre-injury. Like, not only did he rehab an injury, he got better. Like, he developed while being hurt. It's miraculous. So all the credit in the world to Tarik Skubal, and all the credit in the world, as always, to Feder, Lund, and Juan Nieves. So they again, I cannot say enough good things. This outing was just a changeup masterclass. He just threw a bunch of changeups. They couldn't hit it. He tunneled it with a fastball low in the strike zone. They couldn't hit it. Had no clue which one was coming. Threw the sinker when he got behind in the count. Just pitched to contact, rolled him over. It was nothing. Got 10 strikeouts. His final line in this game, 7 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, 1 walk, 10 Ks. He's got a sub-3 ERA on the season now. His ERA in his last 4 starts is comically low. He's unbelievable. And he is absolutely going to be a focal point of this rotation going forward. I know that we've laid the groundwork of the conversation about what it would take to trade him in the offseason. That conversation isn't going anywhere. But every day he proves that it would take an awful lot, and you're not just going to do that for nothing, and you're probably not going to do it at all. And he's probably going to be the ace of this team next season, and that's super exciting. Hopefully he can stay healthy. So that's it for Tarik. I think the offense, it was a solid offensive day, right? Again, they went up against a team that couldn't properly field the ground ball. I'm not gonna not gonna do a backflip over. I can't do a backflip now that I think about it, even if I wanted to. But I'm not gonna do a backflip just because this team put up 7 runs on an Oakland A's team that had a starting pitcher go out there with a 5.5 ERA and a defense that had 3 errors. Like, they honestly, they could have done better. They had bases loaded, no outs, and scored 1 run. Like that, it's a little frustrating. I'm trying to stay. We're gonna stay positive here. We're gonna stay positive, but that's the kind of stuff that still bothers me. Okay. I just got an update right now as I'm recording this about Miguel Cabrera's injury. He did foul a ball off his shin. Everyone would have been absolutely heartbroken if something serious happened to Miggy a week before, days before the home stand to end the season. Thankfully, looks like it was just for precautionary reasons, and he's perfectly fine. So that is good news there. Yeah, I mean, besides that, I mean, you went, oh my goodness, this isn't real. Please tell me this is not real. The Detroit Tigers went 3 for 17 with RISP in this ballgame. Just when I thought we were just going to have all positive vibes. 3 for 17. Oh my goodness gravy. How is that even possible? I need a second. That just hit me like a truck. That just ruined my night. That's like, what is that, a 175 average, 176 average, 3 divided by 17. 176. Wow, math god. That is unbelievably terrible. I take it all back. They should have scored 15. This is an embarrassment that they only got 7. They went up against a pitcher with a 5.5 ERA. They played a defense that scored 3 errors, and they only left 6 men as a team on base, but for RISP in the game, they failed 14 times. Unacceptable. Trying to think of anything else offensively, really, that's noteworthy. Not a whole lot. Like, I mean, you got base runners. You had 3 walks, 7 hits, or 9 hits, rather. Solid, 12 base runners. We'll take that. There wasn't really a super standout performance. It was just kind of across the board. People took advantage of opportunities, not with runners in scoring position, but they took advantage of errors, got some extra base hits. We'll take it. All right, I'm just going to take a victory. We're going to calm down. We're just going to take a win. But that is pathetic is the word for that, okay? We're going to remember this conversation on Saturday when we drop a game to the Oakland A's and go 1 for 12 with RISP, okay? We're not going to forget this conversation for Friday's show. Andy Ibanez, really quickly, I just want to quickly just give him his flowers. Andy Ibanez has had a really solid season. 255 average, 734 OPS. That's around a league average hitter. He swings at everything. He's not going to walk. He's a fine defender. He's really good to his left. Like he's like around a net zero defender overall, but he's a plus defender to his left, man. He makes a lot of great plays toward first base when he's at second base. So like he's been a great find. That's a waiver claim. He's been a good find. And I'm to the point now where I'm not unconvinced that Andy Ibanez won't be on this team next year. I still don't think you should like pencil him in as a starter. I think that Andy Ibanez would be like an effective, like utility infielder to have on your team. But we can't just keep like every utility infielder we have forever. So some decisions are going to have to be made. I'm not like uber confident that Ibanez is back, but I'm like to the point now, if you would have asked me a month ago, I'd have been like, yeah, he's definitely gone. And I'm not there anymore. I think there's somewhat of a possibility that they like his profile. He doesn't walk, but he doesn't strike out a ton either. He puts the bat on the ball. He puts the ball in play. He can play multiple positions pretty finely. So I'm not super opposed to it for starters, but I'm also thinking that he might be back next year. Again, I don't think it's likely, but I think it's kind of creeping into the back of my head that maybe he'll be back in 2024. So we'll see. That'll be a conversation for the winter. Let's get into Brennan Hanafy. Then we'll stop talking about this pretty uneventful and uncompetitive baseball game and get into all the Tigers news happening off the field because there's quite a lot. We'll do that right after I tell you all about our friends over at FanDuel. Snap into the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to join in on the action than right now. You bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, everybody. Goodness, let's articulate our words a little better. All right, everybody. Welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked on Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So Brennan Hanafy made his major league debut, was called up to the majors. Brennan White was optioned down to Toledo. Hanafy's had an ERA in the 4s in Toledo. Toledo's bullpen this season has been awful. It has not been very good. There's not a ton of players to choose from if you're just looking at ERAs down there. But Hanafy has been a multi-inning reliever down there all season. He's got like 90 innings out of the pen. And yeah, like he's I didn't think this was like a bad performance, to be honest. I know that he ended up giving up the homer. His ERA's 13.5. But I didn't think he looked bad. I kind of like the slider. I don't expect him to be like a long-term piece. I'm not sure he's even going to make it through the winter, to be honest with you. But for giving a kid an opportunity at the end of the year, I think the stuff could have been a lot worse. If they do plan on trying to like make something work with him long-term, I'm not opposed to it. But yeah, the stuff wasn't bad. And just like in general, like major league debuts are awesome. Like that's a person like fulfilling their childhood dreams, their lifelong dreams. And so congratulations to Brennan Hanafy for achieving his dreams and making his major league debut. Again, the homer kind of sucked, but a couple of strikeouts in the first inning. Nice to see. There's some, if we want to get like super nitty gritty with it really quickly, like there's some concerns I have with the velocity on all the pitches. Like, I don't think there's very much of a difference between all of his pitches in velo, which I think could be an issue. But the slider had some movement on it. I was pretty impressed with how the slider looked. So again, like the final line's not going to look great for an MLB debut, but the first inning was exciting, and I'd pitch him going forward. I'd much rather people like Brennan Hanafy are getting a chance than continue to see Jose Cisnero for no reason, knowing that he's not going to be on the team in a month. Like that, I welcome this. I encourage this. Please keep doing it. It actually makes sense. And that's it really with this game. 7-3 victory. We'll take it. You should win at least 2 more, if not all 3. But I'm going to set the bar at 2 of the next 3 games there. You really don't have any excuse not to. Okay, let's talk about the newest addition of the Detroit Tigers organization. It is not a player. It comes in the form of a general manager. The Detroit Tigers have officially hired a GM after a year of Scott Harris just going in this solo, man. The Tigers hire Jeff Greenberg to be the new general manager of your Detroit Tigers. He is, what they say, like the 23rd, 25th general manager in Detroit Tigers history. There's a few thoughts here. One, we can just look at him and his resume. He spent 11 years with the Chicago Cubs. The last 3 of those seasons, he was the assistant general manager. He held other titles as well before, obviously, becoming the assistant GM of the Cubs. He was the director of pro scouting. He was baseball operations director, baseball operations, and assistant to the general manager. But yeah, the director of pro scouting thing is something that kind of jumped out at me. All that information just via MLB.com. And then obviously the big one that everyone loved to talk about when the hire was first made, he was the associate general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks over in the NHL. Most recently, he spent like a calendar year there. He got hired early in 2022 and is now back to baseball. He grew up in baseball and spent 11 years in an MLB front office. He is not a hockey hire. Like, that was like the most ridiculous instant reaction from people where people were like, wow, the Tigers are such a joke. They hired an NHL GM. Calm down. not what happened. Like this is that's his most recent title, but again, he spent 1 year in a hockey front office. He spent 11 in a very good Chicago Cubs front office. So, yeah, and obviously the immediate thing that jumps out at you, you hear Cubs. Him and Scott Harris had a relationship before this for sure. It's kind of been noted that they get along pretty well. I think AJ Hinch in his quote said something along those lines. And yeah, a lot of people, love to instant reaction. It's really difficult. I'm not jumping for joy. I'm not, like throwing a parade for it. But it's very difficult because there's no like GM stats. There's no like, oh, like let's look at the numbers for the general manager. Like you kind of just have to let it play out. The biggest thing I want to remind people is, well, I guess I have two main thoughts on this. One is in a perfect world, well, I guess I should start with the first point. My first point is that this is the Scott Harris show still. Okay. I want to make that abundantly clear. That is my biggest point. If you don't take anything else out of this conversation, take this. This is still Scott Harris's baseball team. Every decision that anyone makes still has to go through him. He is going to still be the brain trust behind this organization. He is going to still be the decision maker across the board. Okay. The general manager title is something that a lot of people for the Tigers, like Dombrowski was the GM and he called all the shots. And then Avila was the GM. Now, Avila was also the president of baseball ops. So like he was both, but like he had the GM title. So everyone is just accustomed to the GM being the top dog. That is not the Detroit Tigers anymore. The GM is the right-hand man to the president of baseball ops. He is second in command. He reports to Scott Harris. Any ideas he has, any decisions that he wants to make have to get approved by Scott Harris. Okay, so I want to make that abundantly clear. It's been something that I've been trying to preach on this show ever since the GM search started a year ago. And now that we have one, I want to continue to reiterate. Okay, this is still Scott Harris's baseball team. Okay, cool. Glad that we got that down. Greenberg is not the one calling the shots here. He just has the GM title. He is second in command. He is the right-hand man to Scott Harris. Now, with that comes my second point. In a perfect world, I think, and this is just how my brain works. This is not like, I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that Greenberg can't be like a very productive part of this front office. I think he will be. He seems to be very analytically savvy. All of his resume, the Blackhawks community is like devastated that he's gone. Apparently he went into the Blackhawks front office and completely revamped and enhanced significantly their analytics and how they gather and how accessible information and data is. That seems to be his forte. And having that in this front office is it's music to my ears. Okay. So I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm not a fan of like Greenberg or what he brings to the table. But how my brain works in a perfect world is I want the front office to be full of a lot of different viewpoints. Okay. I want a lot of different perspectives. I want people from a lot of different backgrounds. I want people from that have had a lot of different resumes, different baseball experience. I want super analytical people. I want maybe you have a more old school person in there just to like give their perspective on things. Like I want as many, even not just like, I hate the like old school versus analytics thing. Like both are needed. Like the sooner you realize that, the sooner we can all get past this, like whatever. I want as many total different perspectives. And Greenberg has almost an identical resume to Scott Harris and has a very similar background. And they were clearly like close coming up through the Cubs organization together. And I think Greenberg can think on his own. Like, again, like I'm not trying to make this sound like Greenberg is just like not going to be a good GM here. Not what I'm trying to say. I just want as many different perspectives as possible. And I don't think that this was like the poster child for like, hey, we're bringing in a fresh new set of eyes on this organization. That's my only point. And I'll reiterate for a millionth time because I know I'm going to get comments about it. That is not me saying that I don't think the hire can work out. Do I think it will? There is no answer for that. I'm not the hot takes machine guy. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be like, no, this absolutely won't work, or yes, we're going to hoist a World Series. This is the greatest hire ever. There is no way to quantify and like rate somebody who has not called the shots before coming in and being a part of your organization. We will see. Time will truly be the only way we can tell. And I hope it works out. And again, I'm really pumped about the kind of analytical side of what he can bring. And Scott Harris is obviously an analytical person too. But there's just a side to Greenberg's like history that's a lot more like, I don't know, there's like articles out there about he went into the Blackhawks organization, like wrote an entire like code that would like give them more accessible information and analytics and data that the organization had. Like, that's awesome. So I'm pumped. I also like maybe keep going, maybe hire more people. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's like the compromise we can all have. Sure, bring it. He's clearly a smart dude. His degrees are from very impressive schools. His track record's incredible. But yeah, maybe just don't stop there. Maybe bring in some more assistant GMs from the outside. Maybe bring in more sets of eyes. Maybe that's just a compromise that we can all get what we want out of this front office. Okay, cool. Let's end by talking about the Erie Seawolves. They have swept the Richmond Flying Squirrels and will now play for the Eastern League title. That is awesome. The Erie Seawolves, who made the playoffs last year for the first time in like forever, are now not only back in the playoffs, but playing in the Eastern League Championship. Super exciting stuff. They got a heck of a performance from Ty Madden on Thursday night. He went out there and he went 6 innings, 8 Ks, I want to say, 3 earned runs. It's a quality start in a big game. Good for him. Yeah, man, let's go Seawolves. Let's try to bring home the Eastern League title. That'd be super cool to have a champion within the organization. That'd be super, super cool. It's been a while. So rooting for them, and we will keep tabs throughout. I believe that is the beginning of next week. I want to say like 24th, maybe, is when that series starts. So we'll obviously keep tabs on that next week. Okay, cool. Rest of the series against Oakland. I'm not going to say the W word, even against the Oakland Athletics. You got a 9:40 start on Friday, then 2 4 o'clock starts on Saturday and Sunday. Pitching matchup, Sawyer Gibson Long going for the Tigers on Friday. Super excited for that. Ken Waldachuk going for the Oakland Athletics against Sawyer Gibson Long. Then on Saturday, the Tigers looks like we'll have a bullpen day, and they will pitch against Joe Boyle for the Oakland A's. And then Sunday is, drumroll please, Erod against TBD for the Oakland Athletics. All right, we'll be back on Monday. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Monday, we will recap the remainder of this Oakland A's series. And we'll talk, obviously, Erie Seawolves. Like I said, offseason's right around the corner, baby. And the Tigers now have a general manager. How crazy is that? Never thought I'd see the day. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all on Monday, baby. Go Tigers.